I will introduce Mike from Goodwill Industries. I had the chance to do a tour with Goodwill and had the opportunity to meet Mike, and he is in charge of a very unique and interesting program that I didn't even know was available. So he is the radio reading service coordinator. So he's going to explain that, I guess, that project or that job to you guys. And there's some really, with technology now, and especially with COVID and us all being here at home, there's some very neat opportunities that you might be interested in being able to participate with it. So I will, before I talk too much, I will let Mike take over. I do appreciate Mike agreeing to do this, and for, Goodwill allowing us to help and, just where you guys can ask questions. So I will let Mike start to explain the program. Thanks.
Mike, you'll have to unmute yourself.
Okay, am I good now? Okay. Well, Kim, thanks a lot. No, really, it's our pleasure. I appreciate the opportunity to do this, and yeah, I can kind of give a little overview here of the radio reading service, and then actually we're in for a treat today because my boss, Emily McHenry, was nice enough to also be our camera person today on our little virtual tour. So I'm sitting in the control room right now, and I'll get up in a moment here and then kind of wander about and show. Actually, this is an opportunity for everybody to see the studios. Our volunteers haven't been in our studios since everything hit last March with the pandemic. So this is a chance for us to at least have some of the outside world see what's going on in the studios here for the last 9 or 10 months. So yeah, so again, thank you, Kim. Yep, so I'm Mike Muter. I'm the coordinator of the radio reading service here at Goodwill Industries. And I thought I'd give a little bit of a history first about radio reading services. So like on a national level, radio reading services started in the late 1960s and early 1970s. Our particular service here in Youngstown, we started in 1976. We went on the air May 28th of that year. We were originally part of Youngstown Society for the Blind. And so we were with Society until about 1991, 92. And then at that time, Society closed and Goodwill took over several of those programs, of which we were one. So we've been with Goodwill since 1992, coming up on 30 years here pretty soon, being at Youngstown area Goodwill Industries. And it's been really a great marriage. We've been able to help a lot of people, which I'll talk about what we do here in a second. But so that's our history. We've been on the air here. This coming May will be 45 years we've been broadcasting, and we're just we're proud of that, and again, really excited to be continuing here with Goodwill. So yeah, so I guess, I don't know, with that I can kind of get into like a little bit of the virtual tour here. So I'm going to ask Emily if she could come in, and I'll leave my post here, or at least I'll stand up in the control room. And I'm going to mute us first. Mike Muter with muting is, I guess, a good idea. That's an old joke. Okay, here I go. Okay. So let's see. I got to try to line this up here. Okay, I'm going to go with the, so what I'm looking at is in the upper right, Emily? Is that what you need to focus on?
Yes, that one.
That one, the small one, yeah. Okay.
You should turn the whole volume off.
Sorry. Okay.
There, that's better. Yeah, the top, this one.
Okay. So I'll start here, make sure I go over, so I was talking about the history a little bit. I guess before I do the tour, let me talk about how we operate. So under normal times, pre-pandemic, what we would do is, we have volunteers that come in and read in our studios here, which I'll show you in a second. So that, they would normally come in and then say like, particular newspaper, magazine, or book, they'll record it in our studios. And then those programs get saved and then broadcast at a certain time in our broadcast schedule. So, again, I'll take you on that tour of the studios here in a minute. We actually operate on like what is called a sideband. It's a subcarrier of an FM station. And in our case, we utilize WYSU, the local classical music station that's located at Youngstown State University. So we've been on their sideband since the very beginning, since 1976. So in order to pick up our signal, you have to have a special radio. We're not on a regular, like say the regular AM FM dial. So we have special tabletop radios that we pass out. And someone thinks they could benefit from the service, they'll come in or we'll deliver the radio to them, and then they can listen at home with that special radio. So they have to have it to listen to the broadcast. And that is what it really enables our listeners to access our information. And that is our mission. Our mission here at Radio Reading is to provide independent access to printed information for people who are blind or print impaired. So having that radio at home, that allows the person to get that information independently. They don't have to ask a friend or a relative necessarily to read them something. It gives them their own independent access to turn on the radio and listen to whatever program they like when they want to. So that is what allows us to achieve our mission, is to pass out those radios and have people listen independently. So with that, I'll start this virtual tour now, and we'll start here in the control room. I guess, Emily, if you want to, you can just kind of pan back and forth, I guess, a little bit. So our control room here, this is kind of like this is the center of everything we do. We have our main control board in here, along with the server that it has like multi-function. Our main computer, it serves as the automation system where it broadcasts every day's programming, and it also archives all the programs that are recorded and saved every day. So it's the #1 piece of critical equipment that we have, because without that server, we're not on the air. So that's located here in the control room. And so, as I said, along with the control board, this is an individual recording computer right here. So if I'm recording somebody, say on the phone, or typing whatever audio we want to record, I can record here in the control room with this computer. This area here is like my own work laptop here, and then this monitor is so this is the actual server, which it's displaying like the programs that are going to be, that's the program that's playing right now and the programs that are going to come up in the next couple of hours. So we're on 24/7, so it's just continuous. The audio is continually being played every day, as I said, 24/7. So
Sorry,
that's
I
right.
got a phone call.
That's all right. So can everybody
You can see it right there.
oh, okay, gotcha.
that's what
Yeah,
it's
thank
saying
you.
right now.
Thank you.
Yeah. Mhm.
Okay. Yeah, so that's the control room.
I'm gonna take a quick pan over to this room just
Yep.
so they can see it.
We can visit that room too in a
Mhm.
moment. That room over there is our live room. So under normal circumstances, like say if we're doing an interview with somebody, you can have 2 people sit across the table there. or people, the two volunteers could read back and forth from the same newspaper or magazine. We do that too. So it's multifunctional, but I'll get over to that room in a minute. So we can start. So what I'll show you now is like an example of an individual recording studio that volunteers would typically come in, and it's a little one-person studio. They'd go in and sit down in front of a computer there and a microphone. I'm gonna go in there and sit down again. So I'll be since there's no volunteers in the building, I'll be the volunteer here. So somebody can just, come in here and sit down, and they'd have their newspaper, magazine, or book, get their pair of headphones. And then, we just teach our volunteers how to operate the computer. It's pretty straightforward. They're just starting and stopping the recording, basically. So they're just here, recording for typically like half an hour. That's how long, most of our programs are. And then after they're done, we come in and, give the program a certain file name and save it. All these studios are, they're all networked into our main computer, as I talked about in the control room. So just give it a file name and save it. It gets saved in the server and then gets put in the schedule where it's going to be played out at a certain day and time. So these studios can be a little small, so sometimes you can be a little claustrophobic. All right, so
There's a wall there.
oh, gonna take a little walk down the hall here. Another one of these recording studios in here. Then, as Emily was showing you just a minute ago, so this is the room on the other side of the window. You can actually then see the control room from it. Actually, then you can see what you're doing on your So we control these microphones from the control room. So it gives you some separation, like you got the typical glass that, that you would in a radio station. So one person can be working the control board, and then you have volunteers in here, or if we're conducting an interview, we have an interview show we do. You can have two people reading back and forth. So this room also serves as an extra recording studio too. Here we have a computer here. So if we're not using this room for something else, then a volunteer could come in here, and it's not as claustrophobic. You can sit down and, read with a little more space. So, and as you can see with the soundproofing, that's one thing we've done, which I'll talk about once we get back to the control room. I'll give kind of like a summary of the last 5 years, because really we've changed and we've improved things in the last 5 years exponentially. What we're able to do now in the last 4 or 5 years compared to where we were before is pretty amazing. And I'll talk about that in a little bit. So I guess head on back. Not much more down the hall here. We have one extra recording studio that also serves as like a storage area back here. So someone can also read here. And this is, again, soundproofed. And we just had this redone not too long ago. I had some renovation actually last year, which I guess a lot of places were taking advantage of, everything that happened during the pandemic, and, being able to do some renovations. So we had a chance to do that. It's really turned out well. So another really nice little recording space for our volunteers. So we'll watch back.
Are you going to sit back down at your computer for this part? It's up to you.
Yeah, I need to keep standing.
Okay.
So, so let me talk a little bit about, I guess where we are now. As I said, the last 5 years, we started with our transition to going digital. So we used to operate with still using some degree of recording with tape and CD burning. So in about 2016, 2017, we changed over to completely digital. So we started with how we broadcast, where if before we were using tape and CD, now it's just all in our automation system on computer. So that's typically how a radio station is run now, and it's really worked well for us. We used to be on 12 hours a day. It's now allowed us to go 24/7 because it's automated. So basically what we do is we repeat. We have about 12 hours a day of original programming and then repeat that 12 overnight. So it's allowed us to do that, which we were never able to do before. So we've only been 24/7 for about the last 4 or 5 years. So through a series of grants, we started with that. We went completely digital. Then we also soundproofed, re-soundproofed all of our small recording studios. As you saw, all the soundproofing in there is brand new. That's only been done in the last year or two. So we are sounding as good as we possibly can now. The studios sound great when you record in them, and it sounds that much better when it's being broadcast. So we're really excited about that. We've also now transitioned into, along with being available on our radios, which we always have been, you can now listen to our online stream. So we started that in the spring of 2019. So we're actually coming up on 2 years of being streaming online. That's available on the Goodwill website. We've also expanded into other areas. Since we've been streaming, we're now on Amazon Alexa, which is a great, especially for someone, I mean, for the general public, obviously it's become so popular, but for people who are blind or print impaired, it's a great tool. And through a process, we were able to get our streaming audio on Amazon Alexa. So someone who's able to get an Alexa device set up in their house and listen to us that way, our audio quality on the Alexa is perfect. So it's like you would hear it in the control room. There's no, when you're listening on the radio, there's a little bit of loss in quality. So if you're listening to us, whether you're streaming on the Goodwill website or through Amazon Alexa, it's perfect audio quality, and it's at your command. You don't have to worry about anything with the physical item, like you do the radio. Since it's all voice activated, it's a very natural fit for what we do here at Radio Reading. Going forward, so we're also looking into starting to podcast. So we're going to, just in the next few months, we're looking forward to making some of our programs available either on the Goodwill website or in some of the typical places where you'd find podcasts, say like formerly iTunes, now known as Apple Podcasts. We can be found, or we will be found at some point in the near future there. And possibly some podcasts through Amazon Alexa, which is capable of doing that as well. So we're just exploring those possibilities now, and looking forward to being able to do that here in not too long of a time. For us, it's all about accessibility, and we're really trying to expand that as much as we possibly can. As many different platforms as we can find to help get what we do out and to make it easier to listen to us. That's what it's all about, and that's what we're trying to do. I can give a little demonstration, I guess, with Amazon Alexa. If you guys would like to hear, this will be the time where hopefully it doesn't fail me now. Alexa, Goodwill Youngstown Radio.
Started playing Goodwill Youngstown Radio.
Doesn't sound so good when it's silent. Alexa, cancel. We had our internet go off this morning for a short time, and I think it interrupted our normal. I have to reset our Alexa device to get that going again. But so normally you just give the command to Alexa, and then our live stream would pick up in progress right there. So I don't know. So I guess I tried not to bore anybody to tears there. I tried to give like a good overview. Like, are there any questions I can answer about what we do?
Mike, I think you and Emily did a great job. Thank you. I have a quote. Where are you located? Is that on Belmont Avenue?
Yes. So let me go back to the,
Sorry. Are you going to go back on there? Okay.
yeah.
We can't hear you much, Mike.
Help me out here again.
There you go.
Sorry.
Oh, no, you got me. Okay.
Yeah, turn off your sound on there though. It's so demanding. Okay.
Okay. Am I okay now?
You sound good, Mike. You sound really good. So you're located on Belmont Avenue.
You said, are you located in Belmont Avenue?
Yes. Yeah. So we're in the Goodwill Industries building. It's on the corner of Belmont and Gypsy, right at the county line.
Okay. I had a couple questions on the radio that you had mentioned. How does someone, if they wanted to get that radio, do you have to pay for it, or is it a loaner? How does that work?
No, it's free. Yeah, it's exactly. It's free of charge. And as you said, it's kind of like a long-term loan, like the person, our listener, can keep it as long as they want it. And if they find they don't want to use it anymore for whatever reason, they can just return it. But it's always been free of charge.
And what you said, you mentioned some radio reading. What is it that you read? Current events? What else do you read?
So it's a mix of local and national. We focus as much as we can on local. So we do a lot of, like, one of the main things we do every day is the broadcast of the Vindicator and the Tribune Chronicle. We make that a 2-hour broadcast and split it up basically into, like, the first hour is all the local news. Second hour, we do all the obituaries. And then whatever time we have remaining, we'll do a little bit of sports maybe, or some lighter side to try to end on a bit of a lighter note after you read obituaries for half an hour or 45 minutes. But the obituaries, that's actually one of the most popular things that we do, along with the, local news. So that's just 2 hours out of our broadcast day. And that gets a couple of, it gets repeated at certain times, since it is one of the major things we do. But we're also doing a lot of other, like, local, like small local papers. Like, we used to do all the town criers, as Boardman, Canfield, Austintown, Poland. They suspended that back last April when people couldn't go out to restaurants and stores for a while there, because that's where they would place those town criers, like in those boxes around the different communities. So they stopped publishing them. But normally that's we would do those every week. Like the Hometown Journal, that's the Struthers paper. Boardman News, we do that. The Review newspaper, that's in, like, grocery stores. Oftentimes when you walk in, that's like Trumbull, Mahoning County News. So those small weekly papers, we do as many of those that are around as we can. We actually just started doing, after I had some conversations with various people about trying to incorporate some more local news. So we started doing Mahoning Matters, which is the online only publication that is run by, I believe, some of the individuals that used to work for the Vindicator before it was taken over by the Tribune Chronicle. So they're doing their own online only publication. Again, it's called Mahoning Matters. So we've incorporated that into our broadcast schedule too. That's just in the last couple of weeks. So as much local as we possibly can, and then we mix that in with some national news. But since national news is easier to get through other sources, we don't focus on that too much. We really try to focus on, like, what can't you get anywhere else? if it's really hard to get the obituary somewhere else or newspaper articles, those are the kind of things we focus on keeping in our schedule. If there's no other way to listen to that information, then we want to put it on, have it in our schedule. So, but to answer your question fully, I guess, so we do it like a mix of some magazines too, like Time Magazine, Smithsonian, Consumer Reports, like a lot of these national magazines we do, and all these programs have their own time slot. And we try to keep the schedule as regular as we can. We don't change programs too much, just so, people can count on that program being there. We don't change around the time slot. So, like every, give you an example, like every Thursday at 11:30 is Consumer Reports. So, you can always count on that magazine being there at that time. Same with everything else in our schedule.
Do you have fire? I'm
Oh,
sorry.
I'm sorry. I was waiting. What did you say to Alexa? Because I tried it. I put it on mute and it said something like Easter Seals, Miami. Is that the right one?
That's another reading. That's the Dayton radio reading service, and they're also available through Alexa. But for us, actually, we actually have our own skill. I didn't talk about this before, but so with Amazon Alexa, it's kind of like being integrated into their own software, where you can apply to get your own skill through Alexa, and then you're kind of like embedded in their software. So it's a much better way to be able to access it. It's easier. So if you want to listen to us, the first thing you got to do is you got to enable us first. So you'd say, Alexa, enable the Goodwill Youngstown radio skill.
Okay. So do you know how many people access you? Do they have to all be enabled? I know, I'm sorry, I'm asking weird questions.
Well, yeah. So for Alexa, yes, you have to enable it first in order to listen. That's the one thing about the skills. You have to do the one extra step, to enable it. Once you enable it, though, then you never have to do that again. It's just a one-time thing.
Okay, cool. It's
Yeah.
a very neat service. I didn't know about it either. Thanks for sharing.
Oh, sure.
I just added the skill in the chat pod just to make sure that everybody had it.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I think it could benefit blind people, but then some of my people who don't want to read might enjoy listening as well. So,
And that's kind of what we discussed, when I first went there, too, that some of our folks would just be able to listen who, can't actually read the articles in the newspapers and things too.
no, that's a really good idea.
I only had one other question. I know we're running out of time a little bit too, but how do you get volunteers? If somebody wanted to volunteer to do some of the readings, and I know you said they're not coming to the studio, so are they able to then do this at home and then it gets to you?
Right. So I'm glad you brought this up, because Emily's going to be upset with me now, because we've been working on this for a while. I forgot to mention it earlier. So what has happened? I mean, I guess like everybody else since the pandemic started, you had to figure out how to do everything differently all of a sudden last March. So when we shut down from volunteers coming in the building last March, and we had to figure out, okay, how do we keep going? How do we continue to do what we've been doing for how many years? Almost 45 years. So we've done this to a small extent before, but this is how we're doing it all the time now. So yes, we have a mix of people now that either record from home and then send it to us, or we have certain people that will record over the phone from home too. So we're doing those two things as a mix to get all of our programming right now. It's really been, the first couple of months, it's like anything else, was a little, a little harrowing, you're wondering, how you're going to sustain something like that when you've done it the same way for so long. But it's really worked out pretty well now. We're used to doing it this way. We really miss our volunteers, because I mean, it's like, it's our own family of individuals that come in every day, and everybody knows each other. It's just such a great group of people. I'm just really impressed, all the time, and with our volunteers. And this was another example. Everybody wanted to continue to help us, and they're willing to do whatever to continue to help us. And if they can't come in, then everybody's been, as I said, reading either from home, they'll record a program and send it, or they'll do it over the phone. So actually, what Emily and I have done just in the last couple of weeks, we're going to put together a little tutorial on the Goodwill website about how to record at home using your smartphone and then sending the file, because that's really, we found the quality is actually pretty good. Whether you, I mean, like especially on an iPhone, but even Android, like, you know, pretty much whatever smartphone you're using, the audio quality is good. It's fairly easy to send, and it allows the person to record from home at their own time. You know, they're not bound to any kind of a schedule, and they don't have to drive anywhere. You know, they can just do it from home. So I think once we get people back in the building, you know, we're looking forward to having probably like a mix of those two is going to exist, where we'll have people coming in as we always have, but it's going to give people another opportunity for like how to volunteer. You know, they don't have to necessarily come in. If they want to do it from home, you know, they can do it that way. And I think it's just going to benefit us. I think long term, I think we're going to end up actually having probably more programming than we had before because of that. We're just going to add volunteers. So.
Sorry, I had to unmute.
Yeah.
We want to thank you, Mike and Emily, for taking the time out of your day to giving us your tour and explaining your program. And Kim, thank you for following up with them and setting it up. We're just about out of time. So what I'd like to say is that next week we will hopefully be doing something on state ID and getting some information on that. And again, Mike and Emily, thank you. And we look forward to maybe down the road actually seeing you when the COVID situation is done.
That sounds great. I look forward to it.
Yeah, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you. It was great. Bye.